issue to represent is things that we've discussed, get them memorialized, and then I obviously want Sasha to and the committees to work their way through those lists so that we close them out. But if we bring an issue up, I wanted to get it memorialized so that we said we talked about it and we thought something needed to be done. Otherwise, I don't have any other corrections.
Okay. So somebody want to make a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, we had no actions by written consent in the interim. We've got an audit report. Craig Milady is here from Adamson to talk about it. Craig?
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, this is Craig Milady from Adamson Company, and we have been hired by you to audit the financial statements of Sandpiper. This is our second audit and that we performed, and I just wanted to say up front, we appreciate the opportunity to perform the audit, and so thank you very much for that. Now, our that are in the packet are in a couple of different places. So, and up on the screen here, I see that this is our letter to the board. So this isn't the primary audit report. The primary audit report is back on, I think, starting on page 8. Let's see.
I have it on 85.
Yes, on page 85 there. Let's start with that. And thank you very much for getting that up there. And, in the audit report, our main purpose that you hire us for is, if you go back after the table of title page and the table of contents on your page 88 is our audit report. And this is the primary thing that we provide to you is an opinion of the financial statements. So, and what we do is we review the internal controls that management utilizes in pulling the accounting information together, and we perform various tests on some underlying transactions and relating balances from one year to the next, and other inquiries. And we basically form an opinion that says, yes, these financial statements are fairly stated as a whole. And you can see at the top of page 89, paragraph that starts, that's titled opinion. And that's the meat of everything we do, is that opinion. And in that opinion, we say things are fairly stated. So in all material respects, it's not like we tied everything out to the penny, but in all material respects, the financials are fairly as presented. So just going past our report there, if starting on page, your page 90 are the combined balance sheets of the council. And the balance sheet presents the assets of the combined assets of the council, and then basically the liabilities and fund balances that financed those assets. So you can see cash and certificates of deposit, primarily as assets, and then liabilities, payables, accrued expenses. There's some long-term debt down in the non-current liabilities. Those are the loans with the two loans with America. And then down below are the fund balances of the various funds that are contained in the financial records. Just to point out two numbers to you, at the very top, where it says cash and cash equivalents right under current assets there. There's a balance of about $1 million there, and we're going to touch on that number. The other number that I'll just mention to you is down in the fund balances, maybe about 2/3 of the way down. And the last fund balance is the Hurricane Harvey balance right there, and you see a negative 1,000,007, and nobody likes to see negative numbers, but I think basically the way to interpret that number is that you're hoping to recover in your court actions with the insurance companies and the insurance broker. So the particular fund has that negative that represents the money really put in to fund the Harvey repairs and what you're hoping to recover. So, and a little later on, I'll get back to that cash. Just on to the next page, 91. This is your statement of revenues and expenses. So for the year, and things are starting to look to get back to normal. You can compare the two columns and see 2020 year ended September 2020, 2019, and you can see you've got a full within numbers is a full year of the resort operating and less Hurricane Harvey expenses, and so you're moving back to normal, which is a good thing. Your fund balance is growing. Down at the bottom, you see your ending fund balance has gone from 134 to 890. That's a positive sign that things are getting back to normal. The next statement is the statement of cash flows. And this is just a statement that categorizes transactions by types of cash flows as a whole, in and out of the various accounts. And your cash balances has, just getting down to the bottom there, your cash balance is growing, which is another positive sign. So total cash right now is 2.2 million, or at the end of 2020 was 2.2 million. That's all the combined cash of the council. And just touching highlights here. After these combined statements on the next footnotes, and the footnotes are fairly standard language, just stating accounting policy and just explaining some of the numbers in greater detail from the financial statement. 93, 94, 95, running on through. Page 97 has some more detail on the fund balances, and notes 7, 8, and 9 talk about what's going on with the Hurricane Harvey situation. 9 in particular talks about the debt, the two borrowing bank, and what the status of those are, and those are being paid down with assessments. All is good there. Then going back, just starting at page 100 in your packet is greater detail of the balance sheets and the revenue and expenses and the cash flow statements out by fund. And so, what's labeled as operating as the operating fund really the operating fund, that's a singular fund there. This on page 100, that's a breakout of the common funds. So that's your operating fund and reserve funds for replacement and contingency insurance. So go further back into the statements, you have great details of the different funds. So next balance sheet is the resort fund. After that is the Hurricane Harvey fund. page 102, and so on and so forth, going back into greater detail of those statements that are up front. Starting on page 109, breakout of expenses in great detail. 109 is general and administrative expenses for all funds. And 110 and 111 have separate breakouts: common funds, general and administrative, and 111 is the resort general and administrative expenses. Okay, then the last two pages of the report on your pages 112 and 113, some supplementary information, future repairs and maintenance. In this particular, we don't audit the details of these numbers, but it's presented in audited statements for association. So because God's desire that a schedule be included to detail out the future projects that management estimates will be happening in the future, the funding that will be needed for those projects. So, so that's basically an overview of the report, and the numbers, the numbers were good. We get them in good shape from Mr. Crawford's company. They do a great job in pulling the accounting information together, and their records are spot on. So now I just wanted to take you from our audit report to that letter that is in the front of the package, and that's at your page 14 in the package. And I just wanted to take you, this letter is a communication directly to the board from us as the auditors. This is a required communication. It's all fairly standard language, but I wanted to take you to the top of your page 16. And there's a paragraph up there that is under a title of Other Findings, Audit Issues. And what we're talking about in this particular paragraph at the top of your page 16 is that cash balance that I referred to you on your balance sheet. And during the course of the audit, it was noted that your cash balances in the operating fund is maybe a little bigger than it ought to be. And what we discovered was that over the course of these 3 years post Harvey, the cash balance in the operating fund has built up to a larger balance than it should be. The operating assessments are basically required to be spent down per IRS rules. And I think what went on with Harvey, and this was a little bit before our time, but with everything that was going on with Harvey, and with all the funds and borrowings and things going on, you just were busy with a lot of things. And so we've noted that in the operating fund, the cash is built up a little too great and needs to be spent down. And this has to do with IRS rules. And basically what IRS rules say is that if an association assesses owners for operations, and those funds need to be spent within that year. And annually, lately, you've been filing an election every year with the IRS saying, okay, we're going to spend these funds in the operating fund. If we have some extra, we will spend them in the following year. And that's the letter of the law, is spending them in the following year if they don't get spent in the current year. And we've been carrying a little more balance than we should be carrying forward. So we're all working together to have the council spend that balance down to where it ought to be. We haven't determined an exact number, but we think it might be in the range of, say, $200,000 or so of extra cash you're carrying in the that really ought to be spent down on operations. And so so we will be working to pin that number down and to get that operating fund balance spent down. So just wanted to review that with you. One other just comment in our letter here is on the previous page. There's an adjusting entry we made for a cable television credit that was about $31,000. No big deal. It was just it was booked directly into fund balance, and we reclassed it to run it through revenue through during the year ended 2020. So that's the only adjustment we were very clean. Going on there. So so that's it for my presentation. Did anybody have it?
I do. On the 200,000 plus or minus, would we need to spend it just by the end of 2022?
Ideally, we'd like to spend it down as fast as we can. If we can get it spent down by September 21, that would be great. But
did you say September of this year?
Yes, September of this year. But if you can't, we just need to work it down. Okay, so that we're back on track as far as current year's assessments in the operating fund are spent in the current year or in the immediately following year. Okay, and that we're not building up a balance in the cash fund, because technically you can be taxed on the council can be taxed on that money, and so it can be taxed as revenue. And we don't want that to happen. We want to spend it down. We can.
Yeah, this is Chuck, and we've been working with Craig, and I got it just as of this morning working on the spreadsheet. I'll go over it a little bit later on in the meeting with you guys, just to kind of give you some ideas, what I'm thinking, and then get it to Craig, make sure he's good. Obviously, make sure you guys as a board, Tim and Mr. Rogan, are good before, but we've been talking on a good option to go by and get it done before the end of this year.
Craig, this is Chip. When do you think we'll have, you've given us an order of magnitude, when will we have the actual numbers?
Well, let's see, this is middle of July. We could probably have it to be honest with you, I'm on vacation right now, and we'll be back in the office in a couple of weeks. So I would say that in August, we can get that number. Say by the end of August, we could have that number pinned down.
Spend it by the end of September?
If possible, but if not possible, we'll work on it in the following year.
So what is the tax implication on that 200,000 if we don't get it spent?
The tax implication basically is that you could be taxed at a 21%